19th, 2010 Lowell Planning Board meeting. First matter we have on the agenda tonight is the approval of the June 7th, 2010 minutes. Any of the board members have any comments, corrections? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the June 7th, 2010 Planning Board.
I'll second that, Mr.
Motion's
Chairman.
made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that matter has been approved. The next matter is the acceptance of the minutes of June 21st, 2010. Any of the board members have any corrections on those minutes?
None, motion to approve?
Do I have a second on the motion to approve?
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes yes, those matters are approved. Thank you. Moving along, we have a continuation site plan amendment, 1141 Bridge Street. The board will review a request to change a previously approved site plan, including alterations to the facade of the building that faces Bridge Street, in location, the pedestrian entrance from Bridge Street to the parking lot. The proposed change stems from the applicant raising the building elevation, altering the grade change from Bridge Street to the pedestrian entrance. The 16,826 square foot parcel of land is located in the traditional mixed-use zoning district. Can we hear the case of the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, before we begin, I will be recusing myself from the deliberation vote on this matter.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jim Drazokis from Paul Davies and Associate Architects. About a month and a half ago, the foundation forms were peeled off of the foundation, and it became apparent that there was some kind of error between the architecturals, the civil, and what was actually put together in the field after the foundation was poured and everything else. So I just want to show quickly what is affected, and there's been also some other site conditions that have also been affected because of other things. So we just want to clarify quickly and run it by the board and make sure everybody's comfortable with it. I just also want to state that everything else has been going great. Material selection on the brick, the storefronts, the colors and everything have been very, very closely analyzed, and even the brick, the clients and ourselves have taken the samples out into the sun and looked at them, make sure everything is the right colors and matching what's going on in the Market Basket complex as well. So let me quickly get to this so we can speed this along. This is a picture of the site. We don't have the mic, do we?
We have one tonight.
That's okay. I'll just.
You can hold that up if you'd like.
Yeah,
It's easy to hold it.
All right. No, this
Jerry's
is
gonna
good.
check
This
with,
is good. Perfect.
LCC.
Jerry, we're good. This is a picture of the site right here. Very similar to what's there right now. Next door, you can see the Walmart going
Want
up.
to turn that way? Can you stand that way, Mr. Zokas, in case everybody in the audience wants to look at the
Sure.
plan as well? Thank you. And if you could maybe just turn it towards the
Turn it a
audience.
little bit.
Yeah, thank you very much. That way,
That's fine.
anybody who's with us.
Just don't want to
can
be
see
a
what we
victim
got.
of the fan.
Okay, thank you.
All right. This is Bridge Street right here. This is the proposed building. What's happened is that the portion of the foundation here has come in line with the existing grading. Now, there's a door proposed right here, right off of Bridge Street, and right here is the elevation that we proposed. Now, we basically have three options, and we ran this all by Aaron and Adam, and we've had discussions with the client, the contractor, and everybody's been hammering out what's the best way to address this issue, where the floor ended up about 18 to 22 inches different than where that door could possibly be off of the sidewalk because of the existing sloping sidewalk from the parking grade. The door here, and I'll get into the other two things real quick too. National Grid hasn't put it into stone yet, but they're proposing to bring the power across, put a telephone pole right here, then run the power to the back of the site, power up the Market Basket site, and then power up this site. And we had originally proposed to put the electrical room up in this corner, so it doesn't make any sense to have the power go to the back of the site and then trying to bring it through to the front of the site. So we're also looking for, well, to show you what this door here will go away and the power is going to come into the back of the building versus that front corner. The other thing was that there was originally shown from the colonnade here a direct access right to the sidewalk. That can still happen, but there'll be a landscape stepping at that point. It's not a flush transition. So those are the three site issues that we've come across. This right here is what we presented. We can do this, but the problem with this is that the door will go into the building about 18 to 22 inches higher than the actual floor that you see coming from the sidewalk, coming from the parking area right into the building. Most likely the door would just be boarded up or locked shut, and please go to next door. You see it all the time in a lot of strip malls. All the doors of one store ends up locked up and they say, please go to the next door. The other option was this. We emailed this one to Adam and Aaron, and we also discussed it with the owners, and everybody agreed that we'd just rather go with a larger window than try to make it with the shutters in the residential. So option C is what everybody else is leaning towards, but that was what we'd like to present tonight is option C, which is more of a storefront look, but still has that scaled down residential feel, where this is a transition from the Market Basket to that strip of residential area. So those are our three stuff that came up, and we just wanted to make sure that the board was okay with it.
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
When you asked about the sidewalk, you said you had to step up. How high would that be?
There'll be two approximate 6-inch transitions, one pretty close to the sidewalk and one pretty close to the colonnade.
Two steps? Or-
Well, yeah, there would be 2 steps, but they'd be good 7 feet apart from each other. So it would be more like a landscape stepping as opposed to 2 steps, railings, and everything else. It's just
Anything else you want to add? Do you have anybody with you who wants to speak on behalf of the applicant before I turn it over to the public?
no, we don't have
Okay.
anybody.
Anybody here tonight want to speak in favor of the site plan amendment on 114 Bridge Street? Anybody in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Anybody in opposition to the amendment of the site plan? In opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. This time, any of the board members have any questions? Rich, do you mind if I start with you? Do you have any questions?
No, I just want a clarification, I think, Jim, on, there is direct pedestrian access to the front of the building off
yeah.
of Bridge Street?
Yes, as someone walks down the sidewalk,
Yeah.
someone could easily walk right into this building,
Right,
no problem.
And those 2 steps you were talking about is along that,
One would probably happen right about here, and one would probably happen a little closer right there. So
okay. Is that a handicap issue at all, those steps?
if you were wheelchair bound, you would definitely need to
You'd have to take another route.
take into the route, which would, we have 2 handicapped parking spaces right in the front of the middle of the building. and that has the curb cut and everything, so.
That's all I have, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman.
Thank you. Any other board members? If not, I'll ask Aaron too if he wants to elaborate on any of his comments, but if not, Mr. Chairman, I'll hear from you first.
Yeah, just following up on that handicap access, you can still access it via wheelchair just by coming down through the parking lot, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The stairs are going to be
Yeah,
along
yes.
this side.
Just like you would be, if you were in a wheelchair and you were going into the Walgreens or any other of the
Sure.
15 stores that are next door, that's exactly how you would do it. You would approach it inside
Right.
the parking lot and go to the many buildings that are there.
Can you put the other photo up of the three choices there for a second?
Sure.
I'm just curious, I fully understand your issue with putting the door there, and it makes no sense to have a door there if it's going to be see other door type of thing. But I'm curious why we didn't like the shutters. That looks a little more residential-like to me than the bigger window. Is that a planning board?
Well, there were two people that were adamantly pushing that way. One would be the owner. They're looking for more visibility, more glass for, this is a 30-30 situation. You're going to be passing by this building at 30 miles an hour, 30 feet away. So you want large windows to people to see what's going on
what you're
inside.
selling,
And that's the majority of what's being built, as well as what's across the street with all the other buildings. You have large glass fronts, a lot of brick and a lot of glass.
And so it wasn't a feeling of the planning department that made sense. It was,
If Aaron wants to chime in as well, that, I believe that was our email that we got back from Aaron and Adam.
Yeah, since, just to step back for a second, this project came through the board earlier. We talked a lot about the transition between an auto-oriented regional retail district to a more traditional mixed-use district where there's commercial and residential. And that part of that transition, one of the pieces part of that transition was to really kind of highlight the pedestrian orientation of the building, so it's a little more scaled to the pedestrian. And one of the important ways of achieving that is to actually have the facade that faces the street really accessible to the pedestrian. The doorway access was one of the key elements of that. Absent that being, fitting in this building, transparency, meaning being able to see into the buildings, is part of the interaction between the pedestrian and the building and the commercial use inside. It opens it's a more porous line between public and semi-public space. And then it also reads more as a commercial space as well. It doesn't read as a residential home, so people walking by don't automatically think, oh, it's residential. Some people still look, of course, but if it's reads as a commercial building, you're going to look in. You're more likely to interact with the building in that way. So it's kind of twofold. It was really to keep that pedestrian interaction with the building, and then again reading as a commercial space.
all right, thank you. I think it makes sense and would certainly support the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Gentleman. Mr. Fischett, questions, comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just again, looking at the facade of the building on Bridge Street, the option B versus option C, it looks like there's a difference in the windows themselves. I mean, I like I don't know what are those, 8/8 on the option B. Option C, you're looking at more of a commercial-looking window, is that?
Yes, the window, yes, it is more of a commercial window. The windows on option C are matching of the storefronts that are going to go into the, under the colonnade.
Now, looking at the reverse, I'm assuming this is what's facing Willard Street. So those windows would be the same as what you're
Yes,
proposing on
they'll
the-
have some mullions, but they won't have all the grill patterns in them. The other windows in the back of the building, I believe, will. and on the ones facing Willard.
I know I'm looking at this, and what made the CVS on Bridge Street, at least from a streetscape perspective, what made that really enhance that area was the larger windows and at the scale of the street level. But I know they had the bump outs, windows bumped out so they could put some displays, and I think they had them looking a little, I just don't like that, more of an industrial look. I don't know if you could come up with something that is somewhat of a compromise with the larger windows, but, you know, looking at what the CVS windows, I mean, I like that look. I think that fits the traditional business district, and yet you're still going to achieve the larger windows, but with a better look. This has a little bit more of a commercial, industrial look.
Right. These windows are approximately 6 inches off the sidewalk, so we really
Yeah, I
can't
understand.
play around with the depth of it.
Yep.
But internally, depending on the tenant, could definitely have some kind of shadow box. And usually that's what happens, is they use those windows for full display. You'll see a 3-foot inlet, and then they'll backdrop it with a curtain and then throw their mannequins or whatever else in those windows and do their Christmas displays and everything else.
Just trying to achieve, trying to get away from that regional retail look, because that's
Oh,
not
yeah,
the regional
yes,
retail
yeah.
district. That's right where the transition
Right.
takes place. So I really would like to see, have no problem with the larger windows, but more the style of option B. I mean, and I don't know how you could,
Well, they definitely sell windows, picture windows. Is it the grill versus no grill?
exactly,
Is that, okay.
exactly.
Can I converse briefly with my client?
Sure,
and see?
absolutely, yep, absolutely.
Yeah, hey, yeah, that's- that would really make it nice, nicer. A versus D. I like this.
Six more on top, just aesthetic.
If that's the direction that we'd like to go and get some kind of grill pattern versus non-grill pattern, is that something that we can address later with the approvals and the windows and everything else, the door, shifting the door down, the little walkway change, and then, just run it by, the planning department and make sure they're comfortable with it.
Sure.
Does that work?
Sure, yeah, no, I'm fine with that, and I think, Aaron, I think you know exactly what we're trying to achieve there.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I do too, so. yeah.
No, I'm fine with
Right.
that, and I
Okay.
think the transition with the walkway makes sense. And it's unfortunate this happened, because you know what a discussion
kills
was
me.
originally.
Yeah,
But
right.
I think this is a reasonable solution to what we're faced with, so, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Therefore, I think we have to take two considerations. One, we have to make a first motion to state that we feel it's not a material substantial change. If we agree that it's not a material substantial change, then we could go along and make a site plan amendment as conditional if need be. So if anybody wants to make the motion to begin with, whether it's a material change or not, we have to start with that first.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that the amendment proposed does not signify a material change to the original site plan.
I'll second the
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye. Chair
Aye.
votes yes. Now, the next matter would be the acceptance of the site plan amendment with the amendments to be, I believe, one would be the sidewalk, is you're requesting?
correct, yeah.
The second one would be the, to move the power from the front of the building to the rear of the building?
Correct,
And the third one would be basically to change the windows on plan number C as requested by Mr. Fischett?
with the,
That could come back to us through the Division of Plan Department, and they will
Correct.
forward those photos to us for our final approval.
correct, okay.
That satisfactory to all board members?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yep.
Did someone put that in the form of a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the, motion to approve the amendments to the, submitted with the changing of the power to the rear of the building and the proposed steps to the front sidewalk, and adopting the elevation C, Plan C, with a grid pattern approved by DPD.
Sure.
Motion is made.
Second?
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. So we have 4 in favor and 1 abstention. Thank you very much.
Great,
Good luck.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Moving along, our next matter will be Lowell General Hospital, 295 Varnum Ave. Saul, do you mind if I read the advertisement while you're setting up your plans? Okay. Site plan review, Lowell General Hospital, 295 Varnum Ave. The board will review a project proposal which includes the expansion of the existing facility, including a newly constructed 7-story building with a total of 120,179 gross square feet. The building will house inpatient rooms, a new hospital entrance, lobby, emergency and trauma center, surgical space, among other medical uses. Additional surface parking is proposed, providing an additional 56 parking spaces for a total of 1,467 spaces. The applicant proposes alterations to on-site vehicular traffic and provide for an additional lane at the western access drive. The plan includes landscaping and stormwater facilities. The site is located in the planned development medical institutional zone and covers 599,203 square feet total. I know that we've had some comments that came back to us from Division of Planning and Development, which were dated July 13th. Did you have a chance to get those, Council?
Just got them now.
Okay. Mr. Foley, have you seen those before? Okay. So if you do your presentation, if you could highlight some of these concerns, I'd appreciate that. If not, we'll wait and ask you all these questions later, but maybe if you can incorporate them. So stating that, may we hear the case for the proponent, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Attorney James Hall of 25 Fletcher Street in Chelmsford, and I represent the Lowell General Hospital, the petitioner. We're here dealing with the hospital property at 295 Varnum Avenue. The hospital would like to tear down some of the buildings on its property and replace those buildings with a 7-story building, adding approximately 150,000 square feet to their campus. If you recall, we were here back sometime in January to get the global master plan amended and approved. That's just what it was, a global plan. We now have the specific plan. We have Jerry Foley from Watermark Engineering, our engineer. We have Tom Forty, our architect from RTKL Architects. Those gentlemen will be here to give a presentation, a very specific presentation, not a global one, that will directly look at the building, the type of building. A lot of questions you gentlemen had before when we were just talking generally. So those specific answers will be hopefully answered tonight. And also I have Mr. Winfield Brown, who's the Vice President of Administration with me. He's the gentleman that has been on this project from the very beginning, has dealt on many occasions with the neighborhood association, and he would like to speak to introduce the project to you gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Good evening, everyone. Chairman Linehan and members of the board, Wynn Brown, Vice President of Administration at Lowell General Hospital. Appreciate you having us here tonight to talk about our legacy project and the site plan review for that. It's been a very busy 6 months as we've come full circle with our planning, and we've already begun some of the pre-construction activities on our campus. As Attorney Hall pointed out, we've also spent some time with the Neighborhood Association, keeping them abreast of the plans, and I'm thankful that Deb Forgione, who's head of the association, is here tonight, and I want to thank her for being here with us. I think as many of you know from our earlier discussions, this is an important project for the community and for the hospital as we look at providing state-of-the-art facilities for people in Greater Lowell and the Merrimack Valley, increase our emergency department capacity, our OR capacity, increased and improved outpatient convenience, and private rooms. At the end of this project, we'll go from 17% private adult rooms to 80% private rooms, and that is just something that our community expects and needs right now. So I'm going to, if there aren't any questions for me at the beginning of the presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Jerry Foley from Watermark and Tom Ford from RTKL, and look forward to a conversation with you tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, the green light should do it, and you can pick that up if you like. We don't have the hand microphone tonight, so.
Okay, there we go. Is that good? Thank you.
Yeah, once you, so if you can actually pick it up if you like, Mr. Foley, if whatever's easier for you.
This looks like a scene out of the Scopes trial tonight with this temperature. Well, as Attorney Hall mentioned, you know, this is not the first time people have seen this project. We did the master plan in January. We had an informal presentation with all the department heads in March. We had a technical review meeting May 3rd with Aaron and folks from the other departments. We had a pre-application meeting with this board on May 17th. And after that meeting, we went to the Conservation Commission because we wanted to make sure that we had incorporated any comments we might have heard at that pre-application meeting into the Conservation Commission notice of intent request. Subsequent to that, we did go to 2 public hearings with the Conservation Commission, and we did get a favorable order of conditions to do the work within 100 feet of the wetlands. That work has actually started. The enabling work, which is really pre-construction work to allow us to continue to the next phase, the first step of which will be to take down that shed building. Just a couple logistical things here. The total land here for this parcel, I think people get kind of fixated on the campus proper and they're not really aware of how big this campus is 64.5 acres of land. Currently, the gross floor area is 457,623 square feet. The new building, which is going to be located right here, in the central area, and this is the master plan that you saw back.
I just ask you to hold the mic because I think we're losing some of your voice there. If
Sure.
you can pick it up, I appreciate it. Thank you, especially when you turn a little bit. Appreciate it.
So this was the master plan that we presented back in January. The reason I'm showing you this just because it shows more of the campus than what we presented in the application because of the scale of the drawings that we needed to present in the application. So the new building, the existing gross floor is 457,623. The new building will be 189,759 square feet. There will be a deduction in gross floor area associated with the demolition of the shed building and the laundry building and a couple of other ancillary buildings. There is a maintenance garage out there as well. So the net deduction is 39,887 square feet, which brings us to a total net gain of 149,908 square feet. Some of the new site features that have incorporated into the design are consistent with the master plan that was approved. We have a loop road, which doesn't look quite like this, so I'll put this one up. We've made some modifications to that. And this shows you the east side of the campus. Right now, when you come in, you come up here and you go to the main entrance this way. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be extending this piece of it out to the back so that you can get a connection all the way around to the west side of the campus. We're adding some new parking spaces in here, and we've already added 114 parking spaces in the garage that were not associated with any other new building addition other than what we're proposing tonight. So all in all, we've added about 140 spaces. As part of this project, we understood the impact that might be associated with going ahead and doing this project over a 2-year period. And from a construction point of view, that can be a major impact to the neighborhood. The hospital is sensitive to that. Recent construction efforts for the garage resulted in shuttling workers back and forth to the site, shuttling employees back and forth to the site. Had some mixed reviews. What we elected to do in this particular case was to set aside some temporary spots and to clear out an area on the west side of the campus, and I'll go back to this first drawing, which is right over here. You can see this magenta color. And as you can see, in association with this master plan, it connects to the existing parking over here, which is the most recent parking addition that we did prior to adding some square footage to the garage. And it connects directly to that. And that'll be right here. We did this for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's well outside 100 feet of the wetland, so there'd be no need to file with the Conservation Commission on this. Secondly, it's embedded in the woods somewhat at a relatively flat grade that we could easily grade and that would accommodate future expansion, or more initially, the game plan is to have some passive open space here, basically a lawn area. And the reason I'm addressing this now is because we know that it came up in some of the comments. When we construct the new building in the courtyard, we're going to be eating up the only real flat panel of grass that the campus has on site. As everybody knows, this property sits on top of a hill. From time to time, the hospital would use this piece of property for functions, outdoor functions on weekends and nights, and it was the only place they could do it. Well, they lose that with this project. So initially, there are no detailed plans on what to do with this site, but for right now, after it ceases to be parking for the construction workers, the plan is to turn it into grass, a big grass lawn area that they can use for outside functions. We've got a number of utility upgrades associated with this project. I'll try to address them one at a time briefly. Prior to coming in for site plan approval, we beefed up the electrical infrastructure on the west side of the campus, added a new generator over next to the boiler plant, which now gives the hospital more redundancy and more emergency power. We're proposing an upgrade in the drainage. Again, the drainage was completely reviewed by the Conservation Commission. The way the drainage is currently designed results in an increase in the detention pond that's located out here near Flaggy Meadow. And the reason we're doing that is to accommodate the additional roof area, but also to pick up as much roof area as we can grab from the existing building. There are some things embedded in the building that we don't know about 100%. We're expecting that we're going to be able to find some roof drains that come out of the Mansfield Pavilion, which is the building right here, the main building you're familiar with now. So when that opportunity presents itself, we'll be able to route that drainage through the new drainage system into the detention pond. Before it goes into the detention pond, it goes through all the BMPs, so it meets all the stormwater management criteria for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and that's been verified through the Conservation Commission. So associated with that is sewer separation. There is a plan in your filing application to do some sewer separation on the west side. This is addressed by Mike Stewart. I met with Mike Stewart from Wastewater Utility, and I also met with Lisa DeMeo at the same time to discuss. And they understand that this is definitely part of the program, that the hospital is going to do this. There's already a plan in place to do this. And a couple of other questions came up that you probably noted in the comments from Mike Stewart. One of them was the concept of a grease separator. About 4 or 5 years ago, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts plumbing code was changed, and now the Commonwealth requires exterior grease traps. We're not proposing any changes to the cafeteria at this point. Mike Stewart simply asked that we evaluate that. We not only evaluate in terms of the volume, but in terms of the strength of flow. In particular, what they call fog, which is fats, oil, and grease. Currently, the hospital is monitoring through Watermark on a quarterly basis what's going off the site, but we don't measure it right at the location where it comes out of the cafeteria. We measure it down here where it leaves the site. So they're in compliance with meeting the standards of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So we started that evaluation process, and we're going to look into that. A couple of things we need to know, but it's kind of a separate but related item. I think that, Mike's intent is correct here, that everybody should be doing this. But, you know, whether or not we want to marry it to the site plan approval, it's kind of a separate issue on that side of the campus, because it really doesn't have any impact on the construction that we're proposing. With respect to the zoning itself, I'd ask you to perhaps turn directly to page 6 of our submittal if you have it. And rather than bore you with all the details, what we did there, just to make it easier for review, actually it's page 6, where it says zoning, Article 10, plan development, medical institution zoning requirements. The medical institution zoning district is a little bit different than the other districts. If you go to the dimensional requirements table in the zoning code, you'll see that PDMI is not in there because it refers to a separate section in Article 10. So what we basically did was we just went down each item identified as areas of concern under the PDMI that need to be complied with, and we answered them. And we answered them all in the affirmative. So if you want, I can go through those, or I can respond to questions relative to any specific one of those. It talks about the purpose, the minimum requirements, the use regulations, development standards, screening, landscaping, access, subdivision of land, rezoning procedures, the review, and the decision process. It also goes on to talk about the submittal requirements for site plan approval, which we outline how we meet that as well. Part and parcel of this application is an environmental protection plan. We're required under the stormwater management criteria to prepare a stormwater management plan, which is very detailed. That actually is probably more overboard than you'd see on most projects. Simply because of the use of the property. It's a hospital. There are going to be very rigid standards put in place relative to air quality, dust control, temperature control, everything. So the hospital's got a team in place that's part of the design and construction team, and they'll be weighing in on that stuff on a regular basis. And we have meetings every week just to make sure that nothing's falling through the holes on that as we pull it together. The hospital hired Jeff Dirk from Vaness Associates to prepare a traffic study. That was not with the initial submittal. It came in a little late, and we did submit it subsequently to Aaron after the fact. And the wind's blowing it all over the place here. Okay. I have no way to comment really on the methods and means that Vaness Associates came up with their numbers, but I can very briefly go through their summary. Vaness has completed a traffic and parking assessment in support of Lowell General Hospital's legacy project to be advanced at the Lowell General campus located at 295 Varnum Avenue, Lowell, Massachusetts. Based on this assessment, we have concluded the following. One, the projected increase in traffic to the campus that may be associated with the phase 1 of the project is expected to be measurable but minor and will not result in a material impact on motorist delays or vehicle queuing on the roadways and driveways serving the Lowell General campus. 2, more than sufficient parking will be provided within the Lowell General campus to meet anticipated peak parking demands that's required by the city zoning. And 3, with the implementation of the elements of the construction traffic management plan defined herein, safe and efficient access will be maintained to the Lowell General campus, and the project can be constructed with minimal impact on the roadway system. To just give you a brief understanding of what's going to happen with the traffic, during the 2-year construction period, trucks will be entering on the east side of the campus to the site. Now, the actual workers will be parking over here. Any traffic associated with the actual construction, for example, a truck hauling gravel or hauling debris from the demolished buildings, they will come down here, they will exit through the west side. They will take a left, they will not take a right. And they will go out to the controlled traffic intersection at the boulevard, and from there they will go left or right. So they will not be allowed to exit right or exit straight across the street to get out to the boulevard. Everything will go through the controlled traffic. I know we had a bunch of questions, I'll probably just head off a question here. We had a bunch of questions about the helipad. The helipad is not part of this application. The need for one is definitely there, but we're studying it a little bit further. It's kind of more complicated than people think. It really requires an effort with the actual helicopter vendor and the FAA. You can't just plunk a square out there any way you'd like. They have to define what the proper approaches would be, where prevailing winds are, any kind of vertical obstructions that might be in place, and where the air traffic currently flows now. So just to get that on the table, there will be no helipad associated with this application, but we most likely will be coming in at a future date.
So if I can just elaborate on that a little bit. They currently land helicopters on the site now, though.
Yes, as we understand it, there are probably, on average, 5 to 6, and maybe at the peak of 7 or 8 a month. The only time they land on site is weekends or off hours. They don't work. They don't land during the heavy hours. Actually, there are 6 to 8 a month, but they're not all on site. I believe there are only a couple. Is that correct, Wynn? That are actually on site, and then the other ones. Right. Right. So the other ones are down at the boulevard usually. So
on the city-owned regatta field there, is that
right?
Okay.
In regatta field. Just to go back to your earlier point, Mr. Chairman, about trying to address some of these comments. Thank you, Aaron. We got your letter with your comments. The first two, we submitted the traffic report post facto, so you should have that. And Jeff Dirk, unfortunately, is not here to answer any questions, but I'll do my best. The lead checklist that is now a supplement to the application form will be addressed by Tom Ford, who's the architect for the project. There's a question about the...
I'm sorry. I couldn't hear with the Lowell's Finest responding to something here. Could you just say what you said about the lead checklist again?
The lead checklist will be addressed by Tom Ford. It primarily has to do with the building itself. So he'll be speaking to you about the actual building itself, how it lays out, how it functions, and how it will look. I think we addressed the next one relative to the temporary drive and the parking. There was a question about the elimination of a stair on the west side, and let me see, although this drawing doesn't show it, the drawings that we submitted to you, but that's okay. This one just kind of gives you a basic idea where I'm going. Right now, the emergency room is right over here. So the ambulances come in and they pick up and drop off over here. Employees park down here, and there's a stairway that gets them up to the west end of the building, right here. The proposal in front of you is to eliminate, or to widen this out and eliminate that stairway. So the concern or the question came up that, what will employees do to get to the building? What the hospital's trying to do here is they're trying to dissuade the employees from actually using that. And what they want to do is with the new entrance, which will be up here, we'll have ambulances coming all the way up here. So they really don't want to promote any kind of pedestrian traffic between the entrance and the ambulatory entrance. So they're going to be asking their employees, although it's a trek, they're going to be asking them to walk down here and enter a new or a revised stairway that comes up the back there. There's already a stairway there. We're going to have to modify it to accommodate a widening of the road at that location. So that's a response to that point that Aaron had pointed out. There is an environmental protection plan in place. There is no landscape plan provided for the modifications proposed down here at the west entrance yet. We have given you a site layout and finished grading plan associated with that. This is an item, again, with this ambulatory, which came up post facto. This came up after the fact. We were well into the design, and through the Lowell General review process, they decided that they might want to take a closer look at that. So what we would like to do is we'd like to get this piece of it permitted, although it may not get constructed on this first pass. It's a budget item that wasn't in there originally, and as you can imagine, it's going to cost some money to do that. But the hospital thinks it's a good idea, and they do want to follow through with doing something on this west side to make the ambulatory traffic easier and traffic flow a little bit easier. And I think I addressed the concerns from Mike Stewart, that we are going to make an effort to evaluate that, number one, and to eliminate as many roof drains as possible. And again, the request was to evaluate it. And we will be complying with the fire chief's request to clearly mark all the fire lanes. And as far as the other, Board of Health had no comments. The water, the utility, all meters, and, what does that say? All meters and service lines must be approved by the Lowell water facility. We understand that. So I think that's that. So for now, I think that gives you a broad overview of what's going to happen with the site. And I'll turn it over to Tom Ford to maybe describe the building to you in some detail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Ford, and I'm with RTL Associates. We've been working with the hospital now since about 4 years, developing a campus master plan. And the first phase of that master plan implementation is the project you see before you. The Legacy project is intended to be the heart of a new campus development that will foster redevelopment of the campus over time. The existing facilities on campus date anywhere from 1950, 1930. Some of the most contemporary structures are from the 70s. And the latest structure on campus is the Cancer Center, which was built in the mid-90s. So there are some significant planning obstacles for renovations of the existing structures. So what we're trying to do here is provide a new facility that will allow for ease of access for patients and visitors to the hospital, that will actually allow for a phased development over a 30-year period to replace structures that are no longer support effective delivery of medical care. So to that end, what we've done is we've shown a building that is infilling the courtyard, currently fit between the Mansfield Pavilion, the Cancer Center, and the maternity building. And that structure is 6 levels high with mechanical units on top. And the reason why we're doing this is that there are 2 levels underground in the hospital that we have to tie to. The basement level is where all surgical services are located. And we see continuing growth in that service. The area requires some renovation. But in order to do that, we need to provide additional OR capacity. So what we're doing is we're providing an expansion of surgical services, of contemporary-sized ORs, and outpatient medical services, so that they're consolidated for one-stop shopping for patients' access. That department is located on the basement level. The ground level is currently underground, and that's the home for radiology and laboratory, and those are also major outpatient activities. So what we're doing in this proposal is, by tearing down the shed building and regrading the front portion of the site, we were able to create a new main lobby on the ground level elevation so that patients and visitors can access those prime outpatient services directly without having to find their way through the hospital like they currently have to. The major goal of this project is to improve wayfinding throughout the hospital, so that we can distinguish between patient transportation, support services such as food service and supply delivery, and visitors. And that we want to be able to have visitors be able to find their way effectively throughout the project. To that end, we are locating 3 floors of beds, of inpatient beds, above that structure. That's also adjacent to public elevators off that main lobby, so that patients can either reach existing patient units located within the Mansfield Pavilion, or the new patient units located above. In between, on the first floor, we are going to add a new 38-station emergency department. That's sized for approximately 65,000 ED visits per year. And what we will do is we will reclassify what is currently the main entrance for the hospital, and that will be recommissioned as the walk-in entrance for the emergency department. So that right now, it's shown up in this illustration. The emergency department is located behind the Handship building, which is the classic building here facing Varnum. So you have a long route to get to the emergency department if you drive in. By moving it to the front, we get better access from the street and better identification of the destination for people driving onto campus. So we will have this, this location will be for the walk-in entrance. As Jerry mentioned in the site plan, the rear entrance will be for emergency traffic for ambulance arrival. So in terms of our site plan, we have our parking garage, which was recently enlarged. We're creating a new surface lot adjacent to this main entrance, and that gives us direct access for handicap parking and visitor parking to the front door. So what you see in this view is actually as your approach drive from the main loop road, taking you to the entrance canopy, which will be sized for up to 3 cars to be parked under cover and get access to the lobby. We are trying to provide a contemporary face for the building as its signature, while balancing that against the classic neo-Georgian architecture that's on campus. Between the Handship building and the Cancer Center, which have a lot of limestone and precast details, mimicking limestone, strong use of brick and slate roofs. There's a very strong collegial feel to a large part of the campus. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to play off those materials and introduce some new surface treatment at the main entrance alone to give it that identity as far as the destination, to set it apart from the other more, I'll say, background structures on campus. At the same time, we're maintaining a nice series of window fenestration on the sides for patient access, for the patient rooms. The patient units are 30-bed units. So they're actually fairly sizable, approximately 25,000 square feet each. So we have a very strong repeating fenestration on the sides. And on the front, we've got what we're showing here is the material we're looking at is more of a metal panel and storefront and curtain wall systems to give that modern contemporary feel with it nested within all the classic detailing. This view shows essentially it's an aerial, more of an aerial view, looking at the looking from the parking garage towards the building. You can see the Cancer Center on the right, or left rather, with its canopy and drop-off area. There is approximately a 5-foot grade difference between the Cancer Center elevation and the main entrance for the hospital, the new main entrance. What we've tried to do is align the majority of our floors with the existing hospital to the greatest degree. The Cancer Center, though, is on a completely separate datum in terms of its organization. So we have some intervening connection points to get between these buildings. But what that really does is sets up a series of terraces on the campus, such that we have the Cancer Center at one elevation, the main entrance at a higher elevation, and the top elevation will be for the drop-off area for the emergency department. Again, this shows, in terms of our organization, we've got the metal panel screen for the upper floors of patient rooms, 2-story lobby down below of a lot of fenestration and glass with the drop-off canopy in front, a very strong brick element for the stair tower to set off that metal panel surface. And then we start to make connections into the Mansfield Pavilion floors. So this core here functions as an exit stair. It also has visitor elevators, and that allows us to connect the new patient units with the existing patient units. This is a view as you are driving up what is currently the main entrance drive, which will be kind of reclassified as the approach to the emergency department drop-off, as well as the existing turning lane that takes you to the medical office building. And again, this is really just to show you from the driver's perspective the way of identifying, we'll have signage to identify the different departmental destinations. And finally, with these exterior elevations, exterior views, this is a view from the parking lot that will be provided for the emergency department. Currently, the ED is located sort of on the bottom of a hill, has very restricted access for parking. So what we're able to do here is to reclassify a portion of the site adjacent to the entrance and create a new parking lot dedicated for the emergency department. So we have approximately 25 parking spaces just for the ED. So visitors and walk-in patients to the ED have adequate parking for drop-off for their treatment time and then upon their discharge. We will have a new entrance canopy and vestibule to gain access to the emergency department. A portion of that project will actually renovate approximately 8,000 square feet of the Mansfield Pavilion on this first floor level. But the vast majority of the project is really consolidated within that patient tower in the courtyard. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak on behalf of the applicant before I turn it over to the public? Anybody else? Okay. At this point in time, does anybody want to speak in favor of the application? Anyone here want to speak in favor?
Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, ladies and gentlemen, for the record, my name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. And I've spoken in favor of this project before the Conservation Commission when it came before them the 2 times. And I've been here when they made their original presentation. I'm here to speak in favor of this. I think it's a great project, and it's a win-win situation. Thank you very much. Urge unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
Hi, Deb Forgione, Pawtuckville Citizen Council. We can't say we're in favor of it unless we take a vote of the whole Citizens Council. But I am here to say that they have been definitely informing the neighbors every step of the way of what they've been doing, and that's been a real help for us to understand what's going on in our neighborhood. And we really appreciate being informed. It's a 2-year project, so it's going to be a long process, and hopefully we can continue to be informed, to be invited to hear what the new plans are. Wynn comes to the meeting, he speaks to the members, he answers all their questions, and sometimes it's tough, and it isn't easy for him to come before us, and we appreciate the fact that he does, because we do have some concerns, and we did have a lot of them addressed so far, the ones that we're aware of. This is an engineering plan that's very detailed. We don't profess to be engineers, but as residents, we want to be able to live with the hospital and also still keep the character of the neighborhood. So there were a couple of changes that they had made, we feel, as though from the input from the neighbors. And so at this point, we just continue to want to be informed and over the next 2 years of the process. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else like to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone want to speak in opposition?
Opposition.
Yes, sir. Yep, just go up to the microphone, give us your name and address if you would, sir.
Yep, good evening. My name is James D. I live at 360 Varnum Ave. I have a couple issues with this. Most of it being the west entrance is right across the street from my house right now.
You just- Thank you, I appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
So the west entrance is right across the street from my house right now, and there's always traffic and problems with accidents. I've had 3 accidents since I moved there the past 15 years. And there's also a problem with noise coming down that driveway. I don't know if anybody's ever, probably don't live where I live, but whenever they make deliveries in the middle of the night, I can hear the backing up of the trucks up there all the time. And they deliver oxygen up there or something, liquid, and it sounds like a jet engine. It's usually most of the deliveries are in the evening. And now since Lowell General's become a non-smoking facility, it seems like everybody wants to smoke in front of my house. So I have an issue with a lot of people congregating around the house smoking. It drives my dog crazy. Constantly barking at him. And I think that's about it. That's about it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in opposition?
I'll be happy to state my name. I noticed that the only names that were asked for were the opposition. I didn't hear any of the other names except Mr. Brown, and the others I couldn't hear. My name is Dr. Carl McCarowitz. I speak on behalf of my father, who's been a resident in the neighborhood for over 40 years. There are some questions that I'd like to posit before I begin my commentary, and that is, City Council, are you aware of the level of the trauma center that is at Lowell General Hospital at present? Are you?
This is where you can make your comments to us, sir. We don't answer your questions directly. You can state why you're either for the project or against it. It's not a monologue question and answer period at this time.
I understand.
Okay. But to answer your question, the answer would be yes.
Okay. And I'm not aware of what level the trauma center is presently. Gentlemen, is it 3? Okay. And there are helicopters. So my thoughts are the present situation, the next 2 years as this project is ongoing, which will create more traffic problems and more accidents in an already overtaxed traffic system. I think part of that is because of the closure of many of the collateral roads between the VFW highway and Varnum Avenue. There are people using that road at 50 miles an hour instead of the posted 35 miles an hour. There have been some projects there in the past, and when they begin, there are trucks going in and out, creating dust, which is a medical hazard to the public at large, and especially youngsters, in the form of silicates and respiratory tract disease. So, within the next 2 years, I can imagine the havoc it'll reach on the neighborhood, as well as once the building is established, and then there's an increase in the number of patients and people going in and out of the facility, it's even going to get worse. I wonder, they talk about a total of eventually 1,427 parking spots. I can't imagine that there's even 1,000 now. If you've ever gone to the facility, it's parking is at a premium. So I can't imagine whether they get something like 1,300 parking spots, because I can hardly ever seem to find one when I go up there. The future, they don't have a helipad, but obviously if it's a level 3 trauma center, the intent by any good businessman would be to have one. Now, whether that's outgoing or ingoing wasn't said, but you can imagine that the noise from helicopters as well as the noise from sirens is rather disturbing. It's a residential neighborhood. This meeting was held up 3 times during its beginning from sirens outside with just small openings in the windows, and you couldn't hear yourself. I'm sure this whole proposal is a slam dunk, and my words and my time here are probably for naught. But I would suggest that the planners think laterally. Sometimes people can't see what's right in front of them because they're so fixated on a certain outlook. If anyone can recall the plan of the traffic there, there's going to be entrance and exit onto the same busy street that's already busy. The hospital owns property, if not to West Meadow Road, close in proximity to it. There are 1 or 2 houses over on West Meadow Road, and I don't name any, but the hospital's property is right in back of some of those homes. Now, I would thought that it would have been wiser to have an entrance through the back of the property, especially in the phase of construction. Make it a lot easier for people trying to get into the hospital to visit, or bring patients to the emergency room, or bring patients to the outpatient. If I was an outpatient and doctor says to me, well, you can go over to the Lowell General or you can go to Saints. Because during the construction process, I go, oh, let me think real hard on this issue. I want to go to the one where the construction's not going on because Aunt Mildred went there and she said it was just horrible trying to get in. So I would petition these people to rethink buying property or buying access to the back of their property right where their proposal is for the parking of vehicles and construction equipment, and looking at accessing the site from West Meadow Road. But as I say, I suspect, this thing is already, in a sense, approved, and my words are just perhaps a waste of time, but I hope someone else will have something other to say.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. This time I'll turn it over to any questions and comments from any of the board members. Yes, sir. If you want to go ahead, and Mr. Lockhart?
Yeah, I have a comment and a specific question. I just want to say you really got a first-class job here. It's presented very well, designed very well. And it's good for the community and certainly good for the hospital. My concern initially was, Jerry, when you said a 2-year construction period, I wasn't aware of that up until tonight. That's a long time, but thinking back on what documentation you provided us here, the traffic, certainly your points are well taken, sir, but you may not have seen the report here submitted by Van Ness and Associates relative to traffic. There's a whole section here on construction traffic, the construction traffic management plan that I think is very thorough, very specific, very clear, and I'm just encouraging you to really, enforce this. And if it's enforced the way it's written and designed, then the impact is going to be really minimized, and your concerns would go away. I'd even suggest maybe you want to publish this as a separate document and, float it around the neighborhood maybe, I don't know. Because it does cover all your points very well. My comment, the specific question I have, again, it's driven by the 2-year construction period. Item number 4 on this memorandum we have states, I'll just read it. It says the temporary drive may include stormwater and soil erosion impacts during the construction phase. Do you plan to have temporary erosion controls and stormwater controls in place? I mean, 2-year period, I would think, can impact that and probably should be addressed.
Yes, as a matter of fact, the way we're designing the temporary parking lot is as a detention basin, essentially. We've got pretty good soils over there that we found out, and what we'll be doing is laying down a bed of crushed stone that basically is, 50% or more voids, so rain will have the opportunity to get in there, to sit, and to dissipate into the soil. So it's almost like a self-contained parking and detention basin, temporary detention basin for that period of time. There will be some side slope excavation on the downhill and the uphill side, which will have temporary erosion controls until we can get the seed to come in. We're gonna grow grass out there wherever the soil's been exposed. We'll be growing grass. And once the grass takes place, then those erosion controls can come out. Unless the city wants us to leave them in there, we can leave them in.
Okay, so it's covered. Yeah, all right, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Fischett, sure.
Okay. I'd certainly would echo Mr. Lockhart's comments regarding the presentation that was provided. I do have some questions. I do want to comment as well regarding the traffic plan during the construction phase. I think it's fair to say that the construction team took painstaking steps to meet the spirit of the Pawtuckaville Master Plan, which a lot of work was put into as far as trying to control the flow of the traffic to the controlled intersection, keep it off the neighborhood streets. The question I have, though, and I have a couple questions regarding the East Drive and the West Drive, based on what was submitted and based on what was presented here tonight. I just want to be clear on what's happening with those. So, Mr. Foley, if you could, and also on the loop, that's the loop road that's changing. I'm a huge proponent of creating that central drive that will service that hospital even in the future in order to prevent future forms of egress. I can empathize with the gentleman that's right there where the egress is, and what we'd hate to see and what we're trying to avoid is additional forms of egress along Varnum Avenue. We're trying to make sure that we have service entrances that are not encouraging cars to go further into the neighborhood. And so if you could kind of go over that a little bit, I would appreciate it.
Sure, I'm gonna have to retrieve a plan, though, if you could bear with me.
Sure.
There was something like 47 plans, so I didn't want to.
We got them. We got them.
This fan's gonna blow this over, right? Yeah, of course it is. I think this is the one we want right here. This over here.
Thanks.
If you can see through the color here in the background, excuse me. Yeah, what we're proposing to do is widen this out to 3 lanes.
This, in this, Mr. Foley, for
Yeah, this is the west
side, okay.
west side access. We were hoping that by doing that, we could alleviate a couple of congestion problems at the intersection. We'd put a landscaped island in here that would have 1 lane exiting and 2 lanes entering. The reason we have 2 lanes entering is so that in the event of an emergency, an ambulance will always have a free lane.
Okay.
Right now, it's 2 lane. It could become an issue, and this was the point that I mentioned. It was brought up post facto by the hospital staff as something we should look into. You know, the hospital studied it, and it is feasible to do that, but at some expense. It will require retaining wall construction all the way up to here. As approved on the master plan, there'd be no third entrance out to Varnum Avenue, so that access to this parking lot would be through here. And we would maintain this up to here. We haven't really defined a use for this space up here yet. So we'd clean up this, we'd be able to get 2 lanes in, 1 lane out, make the turning radius a little bit easier, and be able to accommodate 3 lanes of traffic. It would also make the truck traffic easier to get in and out.
And just so I understand, is that what's being proposed this
Yes.
evening, or is that for future? Okay, so
That's what's being proposed. What was-
Okay, because that
Yeah.
wasn't,
I guess, yeah, I probably should have been more clear. What we're looking to do is to get approval. It will be a budget item.
okay.
So we're trying to find a way to make it happen. So rather than come back at a separate meeting, to go through site plan approval process again for that, if we can get the thing approved and find the money to get it done, we'll get it
And
done.
it's only 1 lane exiting?
Correct.
That's important. And what about the east?
The east side is an opposite situation. We've got 2 lanes exiting and 1 lane entering.
Okay.
It's kind of like the reverse picture of this. I can dig that one out if you'd like.
Now, okay. Now, also, Mr. Foley, in this, if you could really go into detail of the change of the loop road, again, I am a huge
Sure.
believer in that. I think as the hospital even looks into the future, again, the hospital paid for the controlled intersection design, and the idea is to, again, mitigate the impact of traffic further down the neighborhood. So obviously, this entrance is important, and the roadway accessing the site is important.
Unfortunately, it's difficult to show at the scale that at the 20 scale, we ended up having to submit four different sheets to get one view of the proposed changes on the campus. But this shows the proposed reconfiguration of the east entrance down here. So we've got 1 lane entering and 2 lanes exiting. As you come up here, if you're familiar with the site, you get very close to the sign that's halfway up the driveway. Right about that location is where we start a retaining wall that extends out to the back. I can dig that sheet out if you'd like me to, but it goes around to the back, connects up to the parking aisles behind the cancer center, and then from there connects up to a new roadway which connects both the ambulatory entrance and the west drive down to Varnum Avenue again.
Now, as I understand it, the construction vehicles will enter from there, follow that loop road, and then come out, and then back out towards the controlled intersection, exiting the west.
Correct. There'll be a separate construction entrance in here. Temporarily, the loop road, the ability to go from east to west along a loop road during construction will be cut off, but it'll be restored as soon as possible while they take the building down, and then they'll be able to put it back together again. But once it's all connected, there'll be through traffic, but the truck traffic for construction will come in, they'll do their staging, and they will leave by the west access road. They won't be allowed to do a U-turn in here and come back out this way.
I mean, obviously, if it's possible, the smaller trucks exiting would minimize even the impact further down as well, but obviously that's something that can be worked out on site. But,
Yeah, there'll be personnel out here directing traffic, and there'll be signage to handle all that. I'm sure there'll be some hiccups along the way, somebody who can't read a sign or follow directions, but for the most part, after the discussion with Jeff Dirk and Vanessa as to what the best way to minimize impact of the neighborhood, it was decided that if we kept all the traffic on Varnum Avenue, you can get out to the signal ASAP rather than driving through the back roads or somebody cutting through down to Old Ferry Road to get out there.
Well, I think it's huge, and I think people need to understand the fact that you're putting temporary parking in to help supply parking for the construction workers or the employees as well, because with the last expansion of the parking garage, I know there was some hiccups with that. I think, hospital was responsive to people calling, and but clearly, what happens is you start to develop new traffic patterns, and people get bussed, and they start taking different routes. So I think that's obviously going to lessen the impact of the neighborhood. I think that's a positive development there. Question regarding and I guess in defense of Mr. Storr in the wastewater, understanding that you're not doing any work to the cafeteria. However, when you consider that there is an expansion of the beds that are at the hospital, I think 36 new beds, they're talking about approximately 41 vehicle trips, additional vehicle trips. That means additional people using the cafeteria, ordering food for the patients. So certainly there would be increased usage in the cafeteria. And obviously, I think that as you do your analysis and as the hospital looks at future development, ultimately it impacts the city of Lowell. As you know,
Right.
You know that better than I do.
Okay, sure, just a sec. I will just make one note, when is that, one of the idiosyncrasies of that whole thing is it came through the plumbing code.
Yeah.
So when we do file for your building permits and everything, it will be part of the plumbing review. Yep.
One of the other projects we're working on internally at the hospital right now is a redesign of our cafeteria, which will be a major interior work of the hospital, and that is actually slated probably within the next 12 to 18 months. We've already seen preliminary designs of that, and I think it would probably be better to address that while we're addressing all the construction inside the cafeteria, which will probably, believe it or not, be right at the tail end of this project by the time we get it going.
But that's your intent as you evaluate that.
Right, but I think that fits better with that project at that point in time.
Sure. Yeah, Mr. Foley, just regarding the roof drainage, I know you had said that you're looking to redirect that into the detention area. Where possible, do you have any idea of, how much?
Yeah, we've been able to identify about 25%. Oh, it's not on this drawing. But get back to this one. About 25% of the Mansfield building right here. We know where the roof leaders come out on the courtyard side where the new building will go. We are picking those up. They will be routed through new drainage that goes down through water quality inlets before it goes to the stormwater detention basin. So we know we've got that much. What we didn't know was what else we might find out. We're going to be excavating down a good 34 feet here below the existing grade. And we've already found a couple of pipes here and there that we didn't know about. So we fully expect that we may be able to find some more roof leaders that exit out that side that we can pick up.
Which you've identified approximately 25%?
About 25% right now, yes.
And then you would be willing, I'm assuming for both forms of egress, working with the DPD regarding design or plant design. I know we didn't have a landscape plan with that, but we've done that in the past, is to really make that a condition that you work with DPD and final design on that.
Sure.
I think that would be helpful. That's all I have at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fischett. Mr. Genvin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I think it's unfair to say that I think this project is likely to be approved tonight, but it's hardly fair to call it a slam dunk, because I think you guys have done a tremendous job of communicating with not just this board, but other boards in the city, and communicating with the neighbors to head off issues that, would potentially cause problems at a site plan review like this before we get to tonight. So that's the key in a project of this size, is early and often communication, so that the problems that could send an approval like this awry have already been addressed, and we're just kind of ironing out the details now. So I think you did a very professional job with that. Let's see. And the bottom line is, I really think that obviously we want to fit with the neighborhood with this type of a facility, but a top-notch medical facility is an asset to the community as a whole. So I think anything you can do to make Lowell General, more current and more capable of handling the needs of the community is an asset to all of our communities. So, it's hard not to be supportive of that in general. But as I said, we do want to make sure we address the issues that the neighborhoods bring up. And I also wanted to point out that from an architectural standpoint, looking at that picture, you're looking at probably, 5 or 6 different architectural styles, from the, the tower there looks like a colonial type facility to the 70s and 60s facilities. And I think this kind of ties it all together nicely. So I think it's going to look good as well. So, all right, now that I've done patting you on the back, I do have a couple of questions. First of all, some issues were brought up, and the gentleman left, unfortunately, about construction noise or noise entering and exiting. And I wondered if you had any constraints on construction traffic with regard to time of arrival and departure and that sort of thing.
I believe, and I'm speaking for Gilbane here to some degree, they've already talked to the city on this relative to the hours of operation, and they're going to comply with the city ordinance.
Okay.
With respect to hours of operation.
So there'll be
what
no...
those are exactly, I'm not quite sure. Is it 7 to 4? 7 to 4.
7 to 4?
Yeah.
Okay, so there'll be no late night, tractor trailers delivering materials and that sort of thing?
Well, I think the deliveries, yeah, I mean, I don't know what deliveries the hospital takes in now, not associated with construction, but I don't know if there are any controls on that could be put in place, but I don't know when they come and go, but there should not be any late night arrival of materials and...
Mm-hmm. Aaron, do you know if that's something that's prohibited under existing code?
I don't think it's really addressed in any kind of transportation ordinance, but the noise ordinance does address impacts after certain hours of the day. So, say, for instance, in the suburban single family, measured at the property line, noise shouldn't reach beyond, I think it's in the SSF district, something like 45 decibels. So there's actual readings. I know if you don't know when it's going to be there, it's hard to measure that, but the noise ordinance would
Okay.
control that issue.
Okay. And the gentleman mentioned deliveries sounding like a jet engine in the middle of the night. Do we know what that is?
I think the gentleman at 360 Varnum Avenue was talking about late night oxygen arrival. We have a tank farm that supplies the O2 throughout the facility on the back driveway. If he was still here, I could let him know that part of this project is we're moving that tank farm right down next to our power plant, so it will be farther away from that. But I will reach out to him after this meeting and try to address some of his concerns and see if there's some things that we can do to help in that situation.
Good. So this will actually help to address that, right?
Right.
Because it moves that
Right. I mean, we
collection.
can't get away from the fact that we run 24/7, 365.
Sure.
But we've been working with the neighborhood on a number of issues, and he hasn't brought those before us before. I'm happy to reach out to him.
Right. Okay. And while you're there, he also brought up the issue of people smoking in front of his house, I think. Is there any way that, or does the hospital provide an area for smokers on property?
No, there's a process in place which is not completed at this point in time. We became a tobacco-free campus, I want to say a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and we have a request for, I believe it's an ordinance in front of the health department, Board of Health, for actually a no smoking corridor that goes across the streets as well along our property, as does Saints Medical Center. So that's just a process that hasn't been completed yet by both hospitals with the city to extend the ban beyond the bounds of our campus. But there's some things that the law department are working on to make that happen, because we'd be one of the first communities in the country to actually do that.
I wonder if, rather than do that, if you can designate an area on campus far away from the building that could be utilized for smoking, rather than pushing it someplace else.
The answer's no on that one.
Is that
sorry.
right?
No.
Really? Wow, that doesn't seem right. But I guess that's not before us this evening.
That's
but it
right.
just doesn't seem right. Okay, and the other thing I
Anything
wanted
else?
to ask, thank you, so, was, this is going to be a long development process, and it's very impactful on the neighborhood. Do you think it would, and I don't know if we've ever done something like this, but would it make sense to ask you to come before us, periodically, just to kind of give us an update on construction, what's going on, and maybe give the neighborhood a chance to talk about, the impact on the neighborhood, maybe address any issues that happen along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I'll leave that one up to Win because he pays the bills.
Sure. Just to also let you know, I meet the Pawtucket Neighborhood Association meets every month. I usually attend every other one, give them updates, answer their questions. So I'm happy to do that. One of the other things that I don't think got teased out of the discussion is that this actually should be a 3-year construction project. And one of the things we've done to make it more affordable and get it delivered on time is we're doing this in this construction in a method and a planning to get it done in 2 years. So typically, this project would take a whole other year, but we've compressed the way we're doing it to get it done on time. But we'd be happy. I mean, I feel like we're here every 4 to 6 months anyway, so I'd be happy to keep coming and give you an
together and
update if
chat.
that was the pleasure of the board.
Okay. Hopefully we can do it on a night where it's not 95 degrees.
I was
in this
trying to think
room,
if I
but,
was going to be, if I was replacing an HVAC air compressor, I could donate to the.
There you go. Now we're talking. All right, thank you.
Or we could just move our meetings over there.
Yeah, that might even,
Thank you, Mr. Gentleman. Mr. Claremont?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to talk briefly about the traffic report and analysis, and I think we just got the letter tonight from Ann Barton, and probably you just got it as well. It looks like it was dated this evening. But it had a couple of questions, and I'm not sure if any of you can answer them, but she seemed to have a couple of questions regarding why the consultant selected a certain land use code and how they feel it best applies to this phase of construction. Do you have anything to add to what the traffic engineer said?
Only that, you know, traffic engineers kind of have their own Bibles that they go by that are independent of zoning requirements. They're really based upon industrial codes that they see and actual traffic counts that they see based upon certain cities with certain populations, the types of roadways that come in and out. So again, I can't really answer to the methods and means there, but I know that every time we work with traffic engineers, you know, we go by the zoning code. You know, the zoning code says we need, you know, 1 space per every 1,000 square feet, and it kind of stops there. They take it to the next 5 steps with respect to looking at average daily trips, peak flows, the turning movements, and all that. So I'm not sure what, I haven't seen Ann's letter, so.
Well, would you know, in looking at the report, she asked the question, I guess, saying that some data may already exist to support changes to both drives, including left and right turn lanes. It would be helpful to know that volume turning movement data supports the lane designations. As I looked at the report, it appeared to me that they made the analysis that there's going to be an increase in volume based upon the increase in size of the facility, and based upon that, they feel it's a minimal impact. But it wasn't based upon traffic count on Barnum Ave, for example. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they went through the turning movement analysis. They went through a strict, flow analysis and worked that into the shift changes to see, what they thought the flow would be. And I think, if I read it right, they concluded that the modifications to the entrances were not necessary, but they would certainly help things.
Right. Yeah, I mean, she does conclude in her comments that appears the traffic impact of this phase of expansion is minimal. However, moving forward with additional phases may eventually trigger the need for more detailed analysis of adjacent intersections, Varnum, VFW, and Varnum and Old Ferry. It's important that Lowell General, the city, and Mass DOT remain committed to address any inadequacies and/or delays that may occur from increased uses at the hospital at various phases of the project, etc. So I imagine, the roadways and the entrances and exits that you're proposing here, that's gonna be it for all the phases. Am I correct, or do we know that?
Well, yeah, if you look at the master plan, there are only these 2 entrances. Initially, the first iteration of the master plan had a 3rd entrance to service the westernmost parking lot, which was frowned upon. So we cut that back, so it was just down to the 2 entrances. And you have that little entrance right off the west to get you to the employee parking.
Okay. I think the traffic engineer concludes, and Ann Barton supports the fact that this phase 1 will probably not be enough to negatively impact the traffic that's exiting out onto the roadway, but they appear to be concerned about additional phases, and I'm wondering what we could do in the future if there were to be a concern as the additional phases come into play, as far as the traffic is concerned? Is this something we can, you know,
Yeah,
build in at this point, or is that something that's gonna come back for review,
Depends on
well,
you know, as the additional phases are built?
I think additional traffic engineering will be required as future phases come forward, for sure.
Yeah, before that, I mean, a couple of things that we're doing. Right now, we're building inpatient beds, and inpatient beds do not have as much traffic demand on them as outpatient visits. We've also moved 120 staff off campus, so those staff are no longer on our campus. So we've done a number of things to try to move things off our campus, as well as develop our Chelmsford site, which we have more and more outpatient things there. So as our volume's built, we've also moved things off our campus. And, you know, that next phase, that next building that might be an inpatient building is 5 to 10 years away. So it's not there's no imminent construction of any size after this legacy project. We won't have the capital capacity to do anything historic like this for a period of time.
Yeah, I guess my question is, at that point, when that 5 or 6 year period comes up and we're ready to go to phase 2, would that trigger another analysis perhaps of the traffic to determine if any changes are needed?
Yeah, but I'm sure will be required by Aaron and company from the planning department to do those kinds of things all over again. And we'll see where we are at that point in time.
All right, thank you. All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
I just want to say I thought it was a very good presentation. I know we've seen Lowell General before us. This will be the third time now in the last 6 months, so we're very familiar with when we had the master plan, again with the preliminary plan that came in front of us. I think an important part would be the communication that you had with the neighborhood association. I think that went a long way. I think by doing that, it alleviates a lot of fears in the neighborhood, and as a result, you have less people down here speaking because they know what's coming before us. And at this meeting, as well as the preliminary meeting, neighborhood association said they've been informed right along. And I think that's the most important thing when you try to do a development in someone's neighborhood. They're always concerned what's going to happen. And so I commend you for answering their questions and attending their meetings. I think this is a good site. You can tell a lot of work went into this plan. We have a lot of details here. I believe it meets the site plan requirement, meets the zoning requirements. So I think it's a good project for the city. Thank you. Any further comments from any board members? Mr. Genman?
Yeah, one other thing, Mr. Chairman, I meant to ask about the lead checklist.
Yes.
Do you have plans to use that?
We will be using that during the remaining phases of design. We're still in the midst of design and going through our value management process with contractors to ensure affordability. Not that LEED is necessarily something that drives cost, but we want to be cognizant of the decisions we make. The checklist that we provided showed a lot of possibles. We were not able to say, we didn't want to commit today to things that we would not ultimately be able to deliver. But we think with the quality of construction that the hospital demands, the energy systems that we have to provide, there are many features of a hospital that are inherently sustainable due to its nature. And so we see that while we're not required to achieve a LEED certification under the determination of need rules, we were approved prior to that being implemented by the state. That we will still continue to use those checklists to make sure that we're providing a sustainable structure that's going to be here for another 50, 75 years.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board members have any further comments, questions, concerns? No? At this time, what's the wish of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the site plan with the following condition that the applicant work with DPD regarding the landscape design of the entrances, east and west entrance, and that the applicant agree to come before this board to give periodic updates on the project over the next 2 years.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
I thought maybe we just,
That's good.
to be a little more specific, say maybe 6 months after construction,
Yeah.
come before us for an update. Okay?
That's fine with me either way, whatever the maker of the motion likes to do.
Yep, that's, I'll agree with the amendment to that, for 6 months progress
Any
report.
further discussion, or do you want to amend just to the 6 month period? Okay. Okay, motion's been made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Thank you very much. Wish you well. Good project.
project.
Good luck. Thank you.
Very nice.
Moving along on our agenda, we have a report on the Mullen Rule inquiry. Information regarding the Mullen Rule will be reported to the planning board by the Department of Planning and Development. Aaron, can you give us an update on that? I know we received some information in our packet, and we've had some communication in regards to some of the board members' thoughts. Have we discussed in previous meetings as well as communication?
Yes, absolutely, and this was, we prepared Joe and I prepared a memo in response to a request that I think has been made a couple times, actually. And that is to address what's known, or commonly known as the Mullins Rule. It's in Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 23D, and it deals with absenteeism on a board and commission. Anytime there's an adjudicatory kind of review, it allows a little bit of flexibility to help move the process forward while ensuring that the board and board members that are participating in a vote are well informed. So the long and short of it is that it allows a board or commission member to miss one meeting where a presentation is made or evidence is presented, as long as that member reviews either audio tape or videotape or verbatim transcript of the meeting or that portion of the meeting that addresses that agenda item, and then certifies through an affidavit that they had watched the video or listened to the tape, and the certification must go into the record prior to the vote taking place. That's the long and short of the process. To get implemented, the City Council has to vote to adopt that chapter, Chapter 39, 23D, and the Council can choose to adopt it for the Planning Board or for the Planning Board, Zoning Board, Conservation Commission, any kind of board or commission in the city that has that type of review in it. So that's basically it. And then tonight, I think we just provided an option for moving that forward if the board so choose to do so. And basically, the planning board, all you have to do is make a vote to communicate to the City Council that you felt would be valuable to adopt the Mullins Rule and request that they do so. And they can also at that time choose to include within that vote to adopt the Mullins Rule other boards and commissions to follow suit.
Just a quick question on that. I know Rich and I were talking earlier with him being on the historic board. Now, if other boards want to do this, do they have to make their own vote and submit it, and then you maybe put it collectively before it, or just one vote would cover it for everybody, or how would that work?
Nope, it's just, all that needs to happen is that there needs to be a petition to move it forward with the City Council. So it only needs to happen once.
Okay.
And at that point, once the City Council is deliberating or making their decision, they can choose to add whichever board they want to that vote. So it only needs to happen once.
Now, I can tell you that at our last historic board meeting, we discussed this.
Oh, really?
And it would have helped us in a particular situation, so I think it's a good thing. And I'd make a motion that we request the City Council to adopt the Mullins Rule statute, as we've discussed with, you had an addition, Joe, about the date.
Right, I had sent an email to Aaron that, the certification, when the member reviews the videotape, the certification has to be on file before the vote is taken. It's a technicality under the statute, so we make sure that date is right on there. But I think it will provide certainly some flexibility, which will help not only the board, but it'll also help the applicants. If they come before a board that's not a full board, they can present their materials and not get delayed. So I think it'd be helpful to them as well. So I'd certainly support it.
I should note, I actually didn't mention it in the memo, but the statute itself, Section 23D, actually allows a City Council to add any kind of process to that. So just for example, it may choose that a board member actually physically come to DPD to watch the video on a city monitor. I'm not suggesting that's a good idea, but
So they could put
there's
conditions on how
flexibility.
you verify that.
Correct, yeah, there's flexibility for the city council or the planning board to suggest certain processes that may make sense. I just wanted to throw that.
Mr. Chairman, when I was out for the 2 meetings, I watched the meetings at home, and we could have arranged for me to call in and vote. I've certainly
I know, why not?
We got the speakerphone?
As long as you sign the paper, I mean,
Well, you know, in the court system, we're starting to do that a lot more by way of the videos here.
yeah.
I mean, you have people who file frivolous complaints, you know, and instead of transporting them to the court and everything, we just do it live from the video. I mean, but we have the lower court level, we don't have a lot of them, but we do a lot sometimes on a medical treatment hearing where we need a doctor to prescribe medicine to a child on a care protection case, and we do by speakerphone with the doctor, especially after they've appeared in person once, so it does expedite things, and it's efficient, and it's applicant friendly, you know, to get people, and it also helps move the process along, and that's the big thing I know now with the reorganization with planning and development. This would make the application process a little more applicant friendly, where you can say, yeah, we can still move this along with you. Again, timing is a big thing for some people. I mean, big application like this, yes, and even when it comes to individual of their own property, they like to see the stuff moving along. When they finally get to the part of moving it, come before the board and answering the question, and so therefore, I think it would be a good matter. I know we've talked about it in the past, so I'm kind of in favor of it. I mean, definitely in favor.
Yeah.
Mr. Gentleman?
So if I can just clarify, Aaron, so this would allow, wouldn't allow voting remotely?
No.
Wouldn't allow, all it would allow is if, you know, there was a series of meetings regarding a single issue, that if a board member missed one of those series of meetings, they could review the document, review the video, and still be allowed to vote on that issue.
Absolutely, that's correct. And just to be very clear, only one meeting can be missed where information is being presented. So if that board member missed 2 meetings where, you know, that information is given, then the rule no longer applies. But at least it gives the opportunity for that one meeting. And 90% of the projects that go, at least through the planning board, testimony is given in one meeting. So I think for the most part, this would solve a lot of any issues that relate to.
I just have a question, because I think Mr. Gentleman raises a good point, is in a case like that, would we pose the question to the applicant, asking them if they wanted us, for them to go ahead and make the presentation and have us vote with just the members that are here? Or do we would be under the understanding that we would continue, you can make your presentation, and that you would have the opportunity to come back at the next meeting and have the
full
members
board
that aren't
vote,
here
yeah.
vote. I'm assuming we would give the applicant that option?
Like that.
Yeah, that option would still be available. I think if the board so chooses to give, you know,
Bottom line, it's gonna
wanted
I
to
think we
give
did
the
that a lot. I
applicant that
know
opportunity, yeah.
one time when the board was only down to 4 members for a good year and a half, and then we'd have a special premise come in, we need all 4 votes.
Right.
So in a case like that, if we started public hearing and one member was missing, and then we continued it till the next day for the public hearing, that other board member could bring himself up to speed, and that'd be sufficient. So, I mean, usually when the applicant comes in, especially under the special permit, when you need 4 out of 5 votes, and one's missing, we usually give the applicant that opportunity. I would continue to give them that opportunity. I think it's a fair process, let the applicant pick and choose.
Yeah, for whatever reason, the
This would
applicant.
just help them say, okay, you know, if they want to fill up the speed on it, I'll continue to go forward tonight.
Now, I'm assuming if the applicant made the decision to go forward and it doesn't go in their favor, they don't have the option to say that, yeah, okay. Just
Change their mind.
Yes, no.
Would like to wait.
It's not a conditional approval, if you vote for me, I won't take it up. Right. No, this is just to help.
Just give me an
the process.
informal show of hands before I make that call.
Right, yeah.
And I think what has to happen as well, if the applicant, you know, comes before a board of 4 and decides, yes, they're okay with 4 and you can vote and that ends it, but if not, the 4 can take the testimony, the 5th can review and then come in and vote the next time, but the public hearing has to remain open, so the 5th can come in and ask any questions that they may have of the applicant, so.
I mean, a lot of times, we come down to, we've addressed all the issues but one, and the applicant wants to come back with that one issue maybe, instead of, so you say, okay, and then If one person there, then at least, you know, sometimes we continue for just the one issue. Like we did to Mr. Dutokas tonight.
Yeah.
He came in last week, we didn't have enough, we continued it.
Right.
But his was a minor enough thing that if he wanted to continue, go get approval from his applicant and come back, then if that person was mitten, they have to sign that waiver, let them know, then they reviewed all the testimony.
Okay.
So we have a motion,
I have a motion.
I'll second.
motion made in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Chair votes yes. Moving along, we have, on notices from budding town, we all received a copy of those. Did we place those on file?
I make a motion that we place notices from abutting towns on file.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. We do have zoning board of appeal notices, and these are matters that appear before the zoning board of appeals on July 26, 2010 at 6:30 PM here at the city council chambers. And for new business, they have a special permit and variance for signs, and the applicant is LCE Properties, LLC, Robert G. Mara, and it's at 182 Chelmsford Street, and it's a commercially high-rise zone. Petition is to erect an oversized, internally illuminated freestanding sign that exceeds the maximum required square footage according to section 6.3.8B and 6.39 of the zoning ordinance. This is before us for a recommendation to the zoning board of appeals. A copy of the sign they want out on Chelmsford Street. It's a laundromat sign.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we refer this to the DPD design planner that investigates signs for a review and recommendation.
Second.
Second.
Motion made in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Thank you. Moving along, we have received a copy of our A&R report, and
Right here.
after that, any further comments from the planning board members?
I have none.
Hearing none, would entertain a, Aaron, do you have any further comments? Sure, I'll take, yes, sir. If you could, please.
Yeah, hi, Rick Tess here from the Lowell Sun. Good evening.
Good evening.
A couple questions for you. One, if we can go back to the Lowell general vote, could you recap that? I think I might have missed that, what the final tally was on.
On the vote,
Yes.
all 5 votes in favor.
Oh, okay. Secondly, regarding the Mullen rule, is there a limitation then on one miss? Is it one miss and that's all?
One.
Okay.
Did you,
all right.
could you understand what Aaron was saying?
Well,
I know you- I
between
know
the
you're trying to-
fan and
with
how,
the-
you know,
yeah.
the direction
Do you have
he
any
was
questions on
facing.
that? We'll try to answer that for you.
No, I guess just regarding that one element of it, it's one miss per case, I guess.
So, I mean, like, say tonight, we only had 4 members, and they came in for a special permit where they needed all the 4 votes.
Yeah.
So, we always tell them, you know, you can come in only 4, or you could wait till you get the full board members. And the applicant, we let them decide, you know, because they basically pick the date and time when they come before us by putting their proposal before us. We have a cutoff on all our submissions that have to be done, so we can advertise and put it in the paper, as you probably well know,
Right.
make sure the public is well notified.
Yep.
So when this matter has come up a couple times before us, and that's why I mentioned the Ritchies on the historic board. As the planning board members, we have members who represent other boards in this, throughout the city. Like the historic board, then we have Northern Middlesex Area Commission, which Jerry's on, and Steve's on the Green Commission for us, so we're representatives by our bylaws from planning board member. So we
Right.
report back to each other. So when things come before us, we have a little bit of understanding on other projects in the site and what their concerns are as well when it comes before us. So then our board members can address them, what's been brought up before them. So the project like this is, and we discussed this prior, when we were out for a little while, when we went down to 4 members, when we didn't have a new member appointed for a year and a half.
Right.
And it came up at that point, for the special permit then, we had 4 people, you need 4 out of 4, which was tough. And that was, we visited that at that time, it didn't come forward before the council. Then we brought up again a month ago, and that's when we asked Planning and Development to look into it.
Right,
So basically, it'd be helpful for us, at least now that we have it on the TV, I think, myself personally, that's the best way to watch it. I mean, you have it live, you have it twice a week on tape, and you can also go to the library and watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, instead of just sitting and listening to it, it's one thing, but it's not, like listening to a cassette or something, it's not the same as music, listening to people
Right.
talk, but if you could verify that you watched the whole public thing, so you'd have to sign off that you watched it, the date and time, and you'd have to submit that for a public record that goes in the file that's saying, I, Thomas Linehan, member of the planning board, hereby verify that on this date and time, I reviewed the whole thing before I would be allowed to vote on the next meeting
I
if
get
I
you.
missed that.
Okay,
So that
okay.
try to brings that board member per se up to date.
Right,
What everything's
right.
going on the issues, and then if they miss something, or if they had some issues that come up that night that no one else addressed, they'd make the little notepad and they would address those issues and they come up as well, because then they could put, per se, their 2 cents in it.
Sure, so that missing board member could watch it on DVD, videotape, whatever that medium happens to be?
And that way move the process along instead of now, say if you had a big project like
No, I understand, yeah,
like when we had
I
Lowe's,
understand,
and we
right.
have Lowell General, say if you have a continuation of 4 meetings, you know, when one person unfortunately can't make one for a family commitment or emergency comes up, you know, with health for their own
Sure,
person.
sure.
And then you can say, well, I missed 1 out of the 4, so now I can't vote at the end.
Right.
You know, especially.
However, you missed 2 out of the 4 incorrect, you cannot
Yeah,
vote.
now you're out.
I get you,
Right.
okay.
So this would
All right.
just help, we're thinking the applicant move the process a little further along and give, you know, more feedback from the board members, and they have a better opportunity with a diverse board of 5 members voting.
Yep, I
Limiting the
understand.
vote and limiting their chances of getting approved if that's the way they feel with less people and,
That's the risk they take, right?
yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Any other
Linehan.
questions? No? Okay, thank you, sir.
I just have very
Sure.
quick 3 comments. One, I passed out tonight, a public meeting notice for the regional transportation update from NEMCOG.
Oh, yeah, right? Okay.
27th, 28th, just an FYI. And then for the August 16th meeting coming up, the only item that came in for a public hearing is the 4th Street Firehouse
Oh,
in
yeah.
Centerville. So we have a submission. I'm waiting for a couple other items, but I think they'll be able to submit it in time. And then lastly, tomorrow, I know very last minute notice, there's a seminar for the first 3-4 hours of the morning about the stretch code. Conservation Services Group has generously offered to provide free training on that. They're well known in the building science trade, so it's a great opportunity if you're so inclined.
And I noticed you gave us a new update for the open meeting law that went.
Oh, yes.
That came down. This was the matter that used to be, each jurisdiction was done by the, you know, for people who don't know, everybody, for the open meeting violation, it was done by county, by the district attorney's office. Now it's turned over to the attorney general's office, so it'd be a fair, equitable resolution before people go before it. I know part of it was the site inspection, and I know one of the things that we talked about before is you have to advertise it in the public. And what did Lowell end up deciding doing? They want you to put public notice outside for 24 hours prior to the meeting.
Right, yes.
All the different boards, actually, the Lowell Sun had an article on this. And they talked about how the boards, how they're gonna put a computer screen outside the window so people can pull up at 3 o'clock in the morning and look what's on the agenda tomorrow. Other ones have, like, you'd see the church, where the announcement of the masses are, they were gonna post them right there.
Yeah, there's actually a board that's out right in the JFK Plaza.
Okay.
If you go
Because
right
before, I
up.
know we post them inside City Hall, but this makes you do it outside 24 hours. And that was the big thing, how some of these small towns were gonna do it. And then the question comes out, who's really gonna drive down to City Hall 3 o'clock in the morning? And then also the article talked, which was very good about, is with the email communications, can you advertise on the web when you're public hearing? Is that enough? And at this point in time, the answer was no. It still had to be done at City Hall someplace where the public had that 24-hour notice. So we're gonna be posting it where? I'm sorry?
Right on that board, it's just outside of the entryway to City Hall.
I know what you
from
mean.
the plaza, directly
Right,
from the
right.
plaza.
So those will be
against the
posted
ground.
upside there, okay.
Yeah, so it should be there, and that any agenda item actually has to include the agenda of the meeting
Right.
with the posting.
Okay. All right. No further other comments? Entertain a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Well, okay. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Chair votes yes. Good night, and thank you, everyone. Appreciate your concerns.